you one of those people who are upset that I platform the alt right?
Um, I don't think it's that. I think it's just that the way that you do it and the way that a lot of other people do it is it's quite it's it's in a way that it gives them an opportunity to just sell themselves. And I don't think that the people that you've had opposing them have always been the best, if that makes
Like,
sense.
yeah, like so. Who do you mean?
Um,
The
I,
people
I
opposed.
don't I don't think Styx and Sargon were the kinds of people you'd want to have debate Richard Spencer, especially when you also have JF in there as well.
I had Kevin Logan on as well,
Yeah,
which is
near the end. And in all honesty, I don't think Kevin's actually he's not the sort of person who can hold his own in a debate with multiple white nationalists. I don't think.
Who would you say, aside from obviously yourself, because you want to go and do this, who else would you say would have been a good pick?
Oh, that's actually a good question. Um, I mean, Contra doesn't really want to do that stuff anymore, and I guess you guys aren't hugely big fans of Destiny. I don't even know how to contact him anymore. There's not really that many people in your defense and as a sort of criticism of other people, I guess. Um,
So do you think it's a little bit over the top with the amount of shit that Andy's getting, considering there's such slim pickings that even you would admit?
yeah, I think the problem is that a lot of lefties are not. It's not that they're. I think there are some who are legitimately willing to debate. It's just that a lot of them are. They know that their strength isn't in live debate, isn't in live discussion. It's a very specific kind of skill. It's something that it's sound bites. It's being short and snappy. It's being charismatic and entertaining. It's not about necessarily just having the facts by your side. It's not necessarily just being right. It's about being able to relay those facts or relay the position that you have in a way that's not only engaging but also in a way that people will be okay with, will actually listen to, rather than just get pissed off by.
well. All right, then let me ask you this: do you think the reason that there are such slim pickings is that people just don't know how to argue their points?
It's not that. It's just that I think the alt-right has had a long time to learn how to argue their points, and that they've just gotten better. It's sort of like an ideological arms race, and the alt-right is starting to get better at this. And I think that really you're kind of doing a disservice if you're not trying to learn how to debate them yourself. Like as much as as much as the left is like lefties do somewhat have a problem with this attitude of just sticking their head in the sand and ignoring white nationalists, but at the same time, I don't think you guys are doing much better a lot of the time. If anything, like
Mhm.
at least there are people like me who
Well, what do
try
you,
to sort of
Well,
actively oppose this.
I suppose until we get you one of the, or until Andy gets you one in the future to actually see your arguments against this, this
I
is
have.
quite good.
I've been on a debate with Richard Spencer. I was on Baked Alaska stream.
I've not seen that. Has anyone else there seen that?
I
no,
haven't seen that one.
I haven't seen that one.
All right,
All right, yo,
I'd
but
have to
yeah,
watch that.
hold on. Question though. You said you guys. Do you have that impression of this show too?
I haven't actually watched your show, to be honest.
That's what it kind of sounded like. Uh, yeah, we're not even a debate
Um,
show. We just have people on to have conversation if they want to have them. Otherwise, we usually just laugh about shit. It's just a morning show.
what? Why didn't you think Sargon? I mean, look. The reason we got Sargon and a lot of people want him for the debates is because he claims to be the leader of the liberalists and he hates the alt right. He's obviously very popular, um, as in terms of views and subscribers. So shouldn't someone at that level be able to defend his points?
no, Sargon's not a. We are talking about Sargon. Sorry, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
But no, I'm just saying that's
like-
the reason I got him on the show.
yeah.
right?
No, I understand that, but I think it's been shown that he is not someone who performs well in live debates, and I don't even think he performs generally well against the alt right at all. I think he's sort of a bit half-assed in the way he criticizes them.
Oh, how about Sticks? Everyone really liked Sticks's arguments against.
Not everyone. I think he came from a very hardcore libertarian standpoint, which would put a lot of people off, and especially since that, especially within sort of right-wing social movements, libertarianism is taking a nosedive in popularity, while nationalism is becoming this more popular aspect. So I don't really think, and there's also the fact that he's quite rambly in how he talks. He's very long-winded, and people just sort of tune out.
If the alt-right is so wrong about their ideas, then surely it should be easy to debate them for anyone, no?
No, not really. It's not necessarily that just the good ideas are always the most attractive ones. Like thousands of years we believed the Earth was flat. Human intuition is something that's difficult to overcome. So say, like the Earth is flat, or let's say like the Earth is moving. But if the Earth is moving, then why do we jump upwards and then fall straight down? The Earth can't be moving. That was an actual argument that was once used to prove that the Earth wasn't moving, but it actually is, because the concept of conservation of momentum, when you stand on a moving platform and then you jump on that moving platform.
But what's this got to do with the obvious differences between race?
Well, the real point is that okay, so let me get on. It's just a long explanation. It's the fact that good ideas are not always the most attractive ones. Things can be true but unintuitive, and the problem is that I think a lot of alt-right ideas are intuitive, but they aren't correct. So, being able to, you're actually, when you're arguing from the factual standpoint, you're actually at a disadvantage in some cases because of the fact that things are unintuitive, and the truth isn't necessarily built for our monkey brains. So when you're talking about race, it's a really intuitive concept to say, well, black people's average IQ is lower. But when you actually start discussing what does that actually mean, when you try to argue what does black actually mean, and you'll hear so many of them, including Richard Spencer, including even JF, will say, you know it when you see it. But what does that mean?
When I see a black man, like they've said it several times, what race is Lawrence Fishburne? I've heard this question several times, and that's what they're trying to explain to you. You do know race when you see it, to an extent, I would say. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's, and I've said that it's these very large sets of Venn diagrams with loads of different characteristics, and it's, as much as there are like these definite no's, there are also some very serious definite yeses, and there's very serious gray areas. Like the gray is pretty much everything. We're not talking about the black and they want to create this black and white scenario, but there isn't a black and white. There's a million shades of gray in between.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's black
mixed race people. Yeah.
Hang on, there's black people from Jamaica, from Africa, from other. But when we say black, we're just talking. You know, say you're at a mall, and you see an Asian person, you could tell they're from Asia. I mean, you don't know if they're from Korea, China, or whatever, but you could tell that they are Asian. Just like black people, you can go, that dude's black. I don't know if he's Caribbean, Jamaican.
Yeah, but do you know? But do you necessarily know if he had a white mother?
Well, usually people who are half black and
like,
half white, you can tell that they're a little bit more lighter skinned, or
yeah,
might
but
have.
But the point is that you don't necessarily instantly clock that.
No, but if you saw someone, I think you can confirm though that if someone is black, that somewhere within their genetic history there will be someone who's black, even if it's not their mother or the first initial parents. You'd find that, yeah. That's going to have happened genetically. That didn't just spontaneously happen one day.
Of course, there are these very, very vague, and I'm going to continue to remind you that it's vague, general trends in certain populations. But when you actually start categorizing them, that's the problem. Because those categories aren't like these immutable fantasy races. We didn't start with black people and then brown people and then Asians and then whites. That's not how it works. And even Asians. You've got Chinese, Japanese, Indians, Koreans, and there's a massive group of like subdivisions within those. And where those lines are drawn, where those boundaries are drawn, depending on the culture, depending on the time in history, has been really fucking different. So the fact that not only are we arguing definitions and stuff, and this is the problem, because all of these points I'm making are points that are entirely true, but they're not necessarily intuitive, that I know it when I see it. It's really hard to fight against.
Well, I mean, hashtag not all. It's difficult to tell people who are like mixed race or whatever. But generally speaking, we can see someone and tell approximately what the general race is, no?
You can maybe, probably, kind
Come
of tell,
on.
but it depends.
You don't think that you might to tell what are dominant in a person by looking at them?
But yeah, like I said, you can kind of tell, but then you might not know a huge amount about their actual genetic lineage.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, there's always the variable.
Yeah, they
of
could be
like,
Jamaican, they could be African, great, but that's
Yeah.
why. But you can still see and understand the demographic of just saying, well, black. I don't understand why that's such a hard concept to understand.
Because of those very, very vague, like, boundaries, where the lines are actually drawn, and those lines.
I know Jamaicans who call themselves black and Africans that call themselves black. I'm confused by this now. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah, but then when they're
support
talking about
Black Lives
themselves,
Matter?
a lot of the time when people are talking about themselves in
do you
this
support
situation,
Black Lives Matter? Do you support Black Lives Matter?
I don't really know, to be honest. I tend not to align myself to specific political causes and just have my own political positions. Like I'm
do
more
you
of a...
see how people in Black Lives Matter are able to tell what black is, and
Sean
you
King.
know
Sean King.
Okay.
But yeah, okay.
Do you remember the fucking memes? Do you remember all of the fucking memes that we used to post? The anti-SJWs used to post about Sean King, about how not black he was, even though he was saying he was black, and all the Black Lives Matter people said he was black.
It's a joke because his skin is very light.
Yeah, his skin is very light. Is he black or not?
Him, I don't know what his lineage is, but he looks has black. He seems to have black features, but he seems to be like half black, half white, or have some white in his family.
There's a difference to when someone's pigment is like more dominant than the other features of them, like maybe the hair is different and stuff, like or they may have a wider nose or something like that. But you can still have a lighter skin of being white, but that doesn't mean the person isn't mixed race. We're not saying that. Like,
well, but this is the point: is that there is this.
And you understand what demographics are then when it shows the difference between like there are Hispanic, Asian, Hispanic, Black, Hispanic. These demographics are separated in the sense.
But they're not separated.
No, they're separated in the sense. That's why you have non-white Hispanics
into each other. Extremely, and it's an extremely slow thing. There is not an actual boundary. There is not this line at which you cross from black to white.
Yeah,
with
there
like
is.
X amount of DNA.
There is on a pigment level. Yeah, there is.
I disagree.
And also features like black people have wider noses.
No, and the fact that I disagree is the problem. And the fact that everyone, that tons of different people will disagree on where that line is.
Tons of people, including everyone who can't argue this point, and your small pool of people that apparently can.
What do you mean the small pool of people?
The small pool. What do you mean the small people? You just fucking said this.
This is literally like everyone within. This is literally everyone within the scientific community. There is a reason
you have just said this, that there's a small amount of people, or at least a small pool of people who will come on to discuss this topic and actually show where everyone is apparently wrong on this.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that everyone.
But all it is, I disagree.
Well done,
you disagree. Cool.
Yeah, but that's not the only people who disagree.
Hey, look, I'm gonna share my screen. Hey, look, I'm gonna share my screen right now.
Okay.
All right. Check out this image right here. Can we, if I give you the three categories, white, Asian, and black, can you tell which person is white, which is Asian, and which is black?
Yes, I can tell what you mean by that. Yeah.
Okay. So
That
there
doesn't
is differences between races, is my point.
Yeah, and then we could also say that someone
Well,
is
there are
mixed
there are
race.
commonly there are
Yeah,
common
but I understand. No, but I
associations.
no, but this is the thing. Listen to me, David. Right? I understand black, white, Asian. Right? I understand Indian, and I would say I even understand mixed race. So then, they would be the categories that I would have. And your mixed race will include quite a lot of people. Yeah, I agree. That big gray area you talk about, yeah, it's mixed
Yeah,
race.
of course. Yeah, there's a gray area. People who are mixed, like for example, Chris Warski. He's half black and half Asian, right? But he looks a Filipino. A lot of people ask him if he's Filipino because he's got the
You're still sharing,
the Asian
Andy.
features. Huh? Oh shit, my bad.
You're okay.
Yeah. So he has the shit. Now I'm showing my camera. He has the Asian features, right? But he has darker skin. So people ask him if he's Filipino. Now they're wrong, but that would be more of an anomaly because it's more a mixed race. But generally speaking, you can be like, yeah, this guy is Asian, and you wouldn't be wrong because his mom's from China.
Okay, but we're still talking about this very vague social aspect of race. This is how we socially categorize race. It's not an actual biological thing. There's a reason that scientists don't start categorizing people by race, and it's not because of some Marxist infiltration of academia.
No, but you would say that biologists would say that there is a gene that determines the pigment of your skin, and that within itself will determine your race.
Well, there's a lot of different genes that determine the pigment of your skin.
Well, when you do
there's 25, I think it's like 25 or 27 genes that control hair and eye color, and they're actually linked, hair and eye color, which is interesting.
But if you go to Africa, for example, a lot of the people who are born in Africa will look African, right?
Okay.
So we can look at their features and we can determine, yeah, you're probably African if you're living in Africa and you look like that.
Okay. So what's the point here?
That's my point. I'm not saying people have different races, therefore fuck them. I'm saying people have different races. For example, if you head to Portugal,
no, I'm not saying that there aren't these. I'm not saying that there aren't these associations, that there aren't these categories that people have come up with. I'm just saying that these categories aren't these actual immutable, very straight up and like yes or no categories. There's this very there is a spectrum of like where you come from. And if you look at anyone's like 23,
by the way, North Africa is what I was talking about. South Africa has a lot of white people.
Like if you go to
as an example,
check.
I'll give you a great example. How about this, guys? Right? Let me share you my screen. Okay, so this is Dr. Charles Drew. What race is he?
No clue.
You not got a clue? Anyone got a clue?
The one on the top left, right?
This guy up here. Sorry, yeah. Let me get a pitch for you. There you go. There's a pitch for him.
Yeah, he's white.
Right, he's white. What would you say, Dave?
Guy.
Guy.
Kind of looks a bit Slavic.
Slavic. Okay.
I don't know. And it depends on that. That depends on whether you consider Slavs white. I don't know. Is he? Oh, blackinventor.com.
Yeah,
apparently,
he's a black inventor. There you go. So you just realized. So
okay.
This is a guy who's got black parents as well, and it's one of those things. But you would guess he would be Slavic. I think this is the point you're trying to make, though. Is that right?
Well, yeah. That is the point I'm trying to make.
Right.
That there is extremely
yeah.
Well, yeah, but that hashtag not all is important when we're talking about these categories in a scientific context, when we're actually trying to talk about these that like biological differences.
But you think that the alt-right aren't aware of this? They're
aware of it. They just don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about it because that's where their policy.
They don't want to. But I know that they would. They always talk to them. In fact, if I'm not wrong, don't they refer to them as outliers?
Well, yeah, they hand wave, dismiss, and then
Right. Okay.
try to avoid talking.
So
about
they do. So they do essentially talk about it though.
Okay, they talk about it as little as possible then.
Okay. Okay.
But
As
when
little as they possibly can.
When a police officer is giving a description of a person, they'll usually include what the person's race is. They'll be like, "Oh, black male, whatever."
I'm not saying there is not a social construction of race. I'm not saying that.
But is that social construction? It's physical features. We could see these differences.
Yeah, through physical features, purely physical features.
But that's not social construction.
Well, it is.
That's
because the categories that people have used to like sort those physical features are a social construction.
So then Black Lives Matter shouldn't be a thing at all.
Well, no, because the social construction of race doesn't exist, still exists. Like, just because something's a social construct, it's like money is.
How would you say? Wait. So you're saying that race is real, that it exists? Sorry, I know where you're coming from here. Look. Let me give you an example of what Dave's trying to say, because it's very simple, right? It's fucking basic. So if you go to, let's say, China or something, and you want to see how their demographics are broken down, you'll usually find that black people and stuff are all actually just thrown into the other category, and they'll actually break it down into different places throughout Asia, and they're the different races, because that's what makes up the majority of their demographics. That's just the truth, right? But black people are thrown into other. I think I don't know where white people are thrown. I think like Hispanics again, you'll be thrown into other, and so on. So from a point of view, I can see what you mean that it's socially constructed. But if you had more black people, but if you have more black people or more people, let's say, migrated from Africa or Jamaica into Asia, then they would have a demographic that would be black.
Yeah, but my point is that where these lines are drawn is different. Is different wherever you go, whenever you go. It's always changing. It's fluid.
Well, yeah, but it depends on how many people make up the demographic to whether they're even really taken on board, which is. Yeah, that makes way more sense because they're outliers otherwise. It's one of those. But you still have a breakdown of demographic of these mixed race, because you do if you go looking. That's why you'll find the differences between non-white Hispanics and white Hispanics. But when I see a white Hispanic, I still see that as a mixed race person.
Okay, so what about Slavs? Are Slavs white?
Slavs, as far as I know, yeah, I'd say that they are white, but they'd be white Russian or white Slavic, you'd say, wouldn't you?
Well,
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's a
there
very.
Are some, well, there's
Russian, Poland,
categories. Yeah. There are the basic categories, and then, like, for example, Asian, and then you could say, Asian from China, Asian from Korea. Yeah, there are the subcategories of the subcategories of humans. Yes.
Okay, so so Slavs are white to you. How do you determine that? What features do you determine that prove that they're Slavs? That prove that Slavs are white?
I don't know. Well, do you know those features you saw in that black guy before?
Well, no, but I'm legitimately
color of their
asking the question.
skin.
Yeah, it's the color of the skin, the say straightness of the nose, probably jaw. You probably you probably have some recessive genes within there, whether it's blue eyes or something like that. Yeah, I'd say.
So what about that scientist before? What
about scientist before? He's black.
What makes him
anomaly?
Black?
Anomaly.
Him black. His parents and his genes and the fact that, like I say, he's
so it's
mixed
not just
race.
That, then. So it's not just that. Then
He's
also
mixed race. He's seen as a black doctor because of his parents. Personally, I would see him as white. I actually see him as white because that's his skin color. But he's seen as black because of his parents. Yeah, in fact, what you're talking about right now in defending that he is black is actually what the Roots whole fucking narrative has about their doctors of the month, which is where I found this guy.
My point here is that I'm showing how arbitrary these constructions are, because they do change. Not only do they change, but people are always arguing over where the lines are.
No, but when I see that guy as a white guy, mixed race or not, I think he came out more white out of the mix than anything. Can I see him as a white guy, like you saw him as a Slav?
And that's what I mean.
But like it or not, genetically, he can still have black children. Yeah.
Yeah,
he still has
watch this.
This is the social construct.
Here's my example. Watch. I'm gonna share a screen right here. Okay, you see these two.
Oh my god.
Couple, right? If these two were to have a baby, what do you think the baby would look like?
Rachel Dolezal.
White. Totally white.
Do you see my point here?
I get the point you're trying to make.
Okay.
I get the point.
I'm just saying, if these two fuck,
So you know
and they
that
have
race is
babies.
genetic.
I know that a lot of
And
I know that a lot of the characteristics that are used to sort that are used to socially sort the races in a social context are mostly genetic characteristics. What I'm saying is that the sorting process, the actual categories themselves and how those categories are determined are not actually, that they're arbitrary.
Would you say there's a difference between ethnicity and race?
Yes.
Good. So I think you're arguing for ethnicity right now.
Well, I'm pointing out that race doesn't have any real legitimate definition.
Right, okay, even though we use it in society all the time.
Yeah. It's like
are genetics a social construct?
Very broad it's very
social construct.
Are genetics?